Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a good evening. I'm sure you're not surprised that I am back. And I'm usually back because things need to be clarified. It's unfortunate, but nothing personal, just sometimes things need to be clarified. Okay, so a lot of things get slung around on the internet because it's easy to do. People's opinions and, their versions of things, but truth you will rarely find. And why? Because we're a push button society. We want things instant, easy, microwave kind of society. We don't want to have to take the time to open a book or look into what something may actually mean. So let's talk about conspiracy theory for a moment. Conspiracy theory, if you actually research it, is a term that was created by the CIA back in the time of JFK's death. And now that those declassified, files are open, there is now no excuse not to know this. The thing is, there's 80,000 pages that came out of that file. And so that means that you would have to put down your device, your phone, your computer, your laptop, your whatever it is that you use, your tablet, and actually read. Okay, maybe you need one of those devices to read these files, but they're easy to download. You can print them up, take out your time to look at them, as we used to do back in school, where you actually had to think. Now, I'm not putting anybody down, I'm just straightening things out here, okay? So, why did they create this term? This is an expression, a term, conspiracy theory. So, to easily dismiss anyone who would think outside the box. See, Operation Mockingbird, television, tells you what to think. You've got people, mockingbirds, talking heads, who are on every channel repeating the same words. In some cases, and in most cases, easy to prove verbatim. They will say exactly what the other reporter is saying and the other, and so on and so on and so on, just like that commercial. Why? Because this is what they're trained to do. Most reporters that you see on MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, BBC, you name it, they've all been trained by, are you ready? CIA. And so they're trained to be able to tell you what to think, how to think. And so our society only sees the surface of things and takes that for truth, absolute truth. Well, this is what they told me to think. This is what they told me it is. So that's what it is. And they depend on the fact that you'll either be too lazy or not interested in actually knowing the truth. And hey, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But if that's the stance you take, then you don't have a right to comment on that particular subject. If you haven't taken out the time to find out exactly what conspiracy theory means, where did it come from, why is it used, then you really don't have a right to make any kind of comment on it. And that's for anybody. There's a lot of people out there that talk about what conspiracy theory means. And so why do I go into that when I've titled this, The Mica Miller Case, What is a Conspiracy Theory? Well, let's look at this for a second. So it's been said that John Paul Miller has got, dead bodies all around him. And I don't see how that's false. Okay. Micah and Chris are not the only dead people we've had around him. Now, the gobbles have been mentioned for good reason. And why was that? Through a FOIA of Myrtle Beach, the police department, Danielle, who is a content creator, had seen the incident report and then requested the 911 call in regards to Mr. Gobble being seen, not by one, but two witnesses at Solid Rock 24 to 48 hours before both he and his wife were found deceased. Now, If there were no connection, it wouldn't have been reported. You got 4 people now. Weeks before Mica's death, a pastor, a reverend, very well known, Jerry Savelle, was also suspiciously and wasn't a planned or nobody expected him to pass away, died suddenly. Yes, he was up there in years, but there was nothing wrong with this man. Ask his family. They'll tell you. And what's really ironic is that he passed away days after having words with Reginald Miller about things that he didn't agree with regarding the African missions. So how many bodies do we got now? 5? And then of course, naturally, Dee Dee, who was found on the church grounds the day of November 1st, 2024, the day that there was an FBI raid. Now, of course, her family says there's no connection, there's no connection. People have found connections. The family may be saying that because John Paul Miller and his crew treat that community like it's their own playground. People are afraid to speak up. Victims for decades were afraid to come forward. One of them as far back as the late 90s. And why do you think that is? Why didn't this girl do something about this back in the late 90s? Because there's a lot of police and police chiefs and sheriffs, judges and lawyers that are in the pockets of the Millers. This is why Mica had such a fight trying to defend herself. Do you remember all the 911 calls that she made that nobody would come to her rescue? Or did we already forget after 11 months? Where is the conspiracy theory here? That again, the CIA created so to dismiss anyone who was able to think critically. What does that mean to think critically? That means I'm not going to be told what to think. I'm going to look into everything before I come to a conclusion. Now we go to Johnny Jacobs. Okay. So we want to just simply say this was an accident. That is the simple explanation. If you want a simple explanation for everything, this is where you will come to that conclusion. However, it was said that he T-boned him. He did not T-bone him. The very car that Mr. James was driving is now in question. That same car, okay, already been reported by Fitz News, has been considered totaled at one time. The VIN on the car is in question. We don't even know if it's the correct VIN number. But we do know this car was known for being totaled. How did a totaled vehicle end up back on the road and end up in this accident? Again, highly visible that night, 7:30 p.m. It was not raining. It was not cloudy. It was not foggy. It was not snowing. It was not a curvy road where he was going in circles like around a mountain. He had full visibility. The impact being that one was going 50 and the other one was going 55 was at 74.3 miles an hour impact. So naturally, a person who's known for not wearing a seatbelt being hit from the side, the passenger side, is going to be thrown out of the car if that's what you're looking to do. And there are people who are trained to do that. If you don't know about that, why comment on it? If you haven't looked into those kinds of stories, if you're not aware of those things happening, why dismiss it? See, that's exactly what our government in the past has wanted us to do. Like a bunch of lemmings, just be told what to think and how to think. This is the truth and that's the absolute truth and just go by it. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, they've been able to steal us blindly out of our pockets, illegal taxation, and spend it on absolutely ridiculous things that we never voted on, we never agreed to. If you haven't looked at our country and seen that our country is a mess and that we've been lied to about how our money has been spent, you have not been paying attention. Is that a conspiracy theory? I mean, look at all of the waste and fraud and money laundering that has already been exposed in the first 3 months of this administration. If you haven't seen that, you're not paying attention. I'm not putting anybody down. I'm not pointing fingers. Okay? But before you poo-poo on the idea that some of us are speaking out of, and I'm doing air quotes here, conspiracy theory, maybe it's best to just look into why we would be reporting these things. Why would we? Let's remember that Mr. Miller has been accused and his father actually arrested for trafficking. Do you have any idea what traffickers do? When somebody gets in the way of their business, and this is a lucrative business, by the way, a lot of money, people are wiped out who get in their way. This is notorious of traffickers. Did you see the affidavit that Mica wrote out? Did you ever read it? And is this once again a conspiracy theory that this woman wrote out a list of the things that her husband made her do against her will? Are we to dismiss her and just say it's all conspiracy theory? You know, sometimes it's annoying, I got to tell you. And I'm not trying to put anybody down. But as I said, we are where we are. We allow people like Mr. Miller, the Millers, to get away with. We actually lay out the yellow brick road for them to do their criminal activities and harm other people and make victims out of other people because we are complicit through our ignorance. And we're glad to stay ignorant. We feel bliss in our ignorance. And then anybody who tries to say, wait a minute, I have the truth here. Let me tell you what's really going on. We're called conspiracy theorists. Now, I have never once said everything I say is absolute. I'm correct in all of it. I've said possibility. I even said I was wearing a tinfoil hat. But to just flat out dismiss and not even really understand where the term came from, conspiracy theory, you've wiped out every victim that's been victimized by these people, in a sense, by saying, well, you know, there's not a lot of dead bodies surrounding John Paul Miller. There's not? You don't think 5 is a lot in a very short period of time? And what are we up to now? 6 with Johnny? Johnny was the man who found Mica's belongings, allegedly. A lot of us believe, because of his own words. Once again, this was not something that came out of the air. We didn't pull it out of our rear ends. Johnny Jacobs chose to go before many, many different interviews with many, many different interviewers, with many, many different versions of what happened on that day. The truth never changes, only lies. And when you've got to keep changing the facts or what you claim to be facts, there's possible deception there. Why be deceptive? If all you did was find her belongings, why would that have to be changed? It's as simple as I stumbled on her belongings. I picked them up. I brought them to a law enforcement officer. The end. How would there have to be any change to that story? Unless that's not it. Unless there's more to it. And there always was. So we didn't come up with this. How is that a conspiracy theory? No, that means that he was deceptive. Why? Do you realize an expert who's been working for over 20 years with law enforcement in regards to this very subject on being able to detect deception in someone's speech actually went through his speeches and found deception? Who are we to say that Jack Fox doesn't know what he's doing or talking about? No, it's a conspiracy theory. Really? And this is why the world is in the situation it's in today. because they depend, they being the elites, Hollyweird, the corrupt politicians, the corrupt judges, the corrupt cops and sheriff deputies, and all of those people are depending on the rest of us to go, we don't believe in conspiracy theories. We just believe what they tell us to believe. Lemmings with your arms out like zombies in front of you. They told us what to think. They told us what to eat. They told us what to buy. They told us what to do. And we do it like a bunch of idiots. And that's why we're in the situation we're in now. We literally allowed for the government to take our currency and back it by, ready? Air. Tell me, what's the fiat dollar backed by? Anything? Because for many, many, many years, it was backed by precious metals, all the way up to the early 70s. Oh, another conspiracy theory, Ann. Really, you better look into it. During the Nixon years is when we turned away from gold-backed standard and allowed the government to tell us that we could back our money by nothing. And this is how they've been able to easily inflate prices on us. But no, that's a conspiracy theory. And every single person that went up against it, they're not with us today. Another conspiracy theory. But that's okay. As long as we keep thinking like the lemmings they want us to be, the enemy, the bad guy, the traffickers, okay, are always going to be able to do what they're doing without any obstruction, without any interruption, because we won't question them. We won't get in their way because, we have to think the simplest terms on what we've been told to think. Well, I'm sorry, that's not me. I question everything. And because I question everything, because I've taken out the time to research, there is no such thing as conspiracy theory. It was a made-up term. It was made up by a group of people who belong to a corrupt intelligence agency that's been harming Americans for decades. And this is the very way that they've been harming us, making us unable to think outside the box. Everything I've ever mentioned here, under speculation, anything I've speculated was always probable. Always. People have been wiping out people. Criminals have been wiping out people for years, decades, centuries that were a threat to them and their criminal empire. You think the feds are investigating this man because he was just a bad husband? Because he was just a bad pastor? Because he laundered money at Solid Rock? Then why didn't they show up at Solid Rock? Why weren't they there? Has anybody answered that question? Why did they go into his home? Why was the warrant about Mica or domestic violence? Had nothing to do with finance. Nothing. But we keep latching on to that because the people who speak like the CIA, talking heads, CNN, news reporters keep pushing that narrative. And then the ones like me who come on and talk like the everyday person, well, that's just a conspiracy theory. Are you sure? Are you sure? Or is it possible you're just unable to think outside the box? Again, please don't go yelling and talking to people about, oh, Ann said this about this one and that one. No, this is towards many people. Yes, something had sparked me to say something about it. I did see something and it sparked me to say something about true. But this is against a society of people who, as soon as they hear something that haven't been told to think, they insult you by calling you a conspiracy theorist. And there is no such term. It doesn't exist. As I said, it was created to be able to dismiss a person or people, many, many people who can think outside the box, who aren't told what to think. but can think for themselves. I've said multiple times, if you really want to know the truth about what's going on in your world, in your future, in your society, with your money, how things are going to be a year from now, 6 months from now, go to X. It's the only platform that's open to truth. Not Facebook, not even YouTube, not TikTok, not these Instagram and these stupid, idiotic places that everybody gives time to, because everybody wants to just be entertained, like 5-year-olds. Just entertain me, entertain me. It looks good and it sounds good and it makes me feel good. So that's all I want to. That's all I want to know. I want to live in my bubble of ignorant bliss, and I don't want to be bothered. Okay, well, don't complain when you can't afford your house or your car, or you can't afford a dozen eggs. Don't complain. You don't have a right to complain. Be quiet. Because if you're not willing to find the problem and then help with the solution, then just sit down and let the adults handle it. Because obviously you can't. You're not willing to. You want to be told what to do. So I'm telling you what to do. Be quiet. Let the adults handle. Let the people who can think for themselves figure out the problem and then solve it. Well, you sit there coming up with CIA expressions to throw around and fling around all over the place to make yourself sound relevant and sound like you're smart when you don't at all. If this sounds insulting, it's not meant to be. It's meant to wake you up. It's meant to piss you off enough to go, let me find out, what is Ann talking about? Why does she go on and on and on about Twitter? Because you're not finding the truth anywhere else. Because if you knew the truth, you wouldn't say things like conspiracy theory. You wouldn't dismiss so quickly the things that people have come up with while digging on this case. Not just merely reporting, actual investigative digging. Paying for FOIAs, questioning people, taking trips. People are actually doing things to look into this case for the past 11 months. Not just sitting on TikTok causing drama. Well, this one said this and that one said that. Who cares? No one cares. And it's constant over there. And then everybody else just reports on. At least Fitz News went and looked, and obviously they're talking to law enforcement because the information they came forward with would only come from law enforcement. And thank God. This is the kind of reporting that we need. People who come forward with fact. Now, if I threw in my opinion on how I see the facts, that's my opinion. You don't have to make it, it's not written in stone. You don't have to make this law. It's just something to think about, something to chew on. But to dismiss it just because you don't understand it by calling it conspiracy theory, prove then that it is a conspiracy theory. Prove it. If you can't prove that it was just merely an accident, then don't say that at all. That's your opinion. That's how you see it. If you can't prove that all these dead people surrounding John Paul Miller, that he's totally innocent of all of them, and whoever said that he did it? He pays people to do his dirty work. That's been said many times. He's admitted it. So have the people around him. So who's to say that he didn't pay people to wipe these people out, or people that he's associated with? Why does it have to be John Paul Miller? It could be Reginald Miller. It could be anybody that's in his circle. We have no idea who John Paul works for, but something's going on there. And his own wife, may I add, who was found dead in the water, went to her lawyer and actually gave this information to her lawyer under an affidavit. According to John Paul, anybody can lie to an affidavit. Anybody can lie on an affidavit, he says. That's his way of dismissing everything Mica said. So he could go on and on and on and on and on with his criminal activities. No interruptions, no obstructions. Let's just dismiss everything Micah said. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, his first wife, Allison, pretty much said the same. But let's dismiss what she said too, right? Let's dismiss Jane Doe, number one, Jane Doe, number two, and possibly, who knows, if there'll be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we can go on and on. Okay? We knew about John Paul hitting that woman, what was it, twice with his truck? This is not an innocent man. So if there's any, and I'm doing air quotes now, conspiracy theories surrounding John Paul Miller, once again with the air quotes, John Paul Miller is the one who's caused those conspiracy theories to fly around him. His actions, his words, the way he has presented himself, the way he's ran his life. I didn't need to come forward. None of these other people needed to come forward and say this about him. You know, he was advised from day one not to go out there and announce his wife's death. He didn't listen. This would have never started if he would have just listened to the advice that he was given. I'm sure his lawyers throughout the past 11 months said, shut up, John Paul. Stop talking, John Paul. But what does he do? He goes, screw you, and does what he wants. And then gets mad because there's a consequence. But, okay. We're all conspiracy theorists here. John Paul is an innocent man. Absolutely incredible. I'm sorry. I'm just amazed. Listen, what happened to Johnny Jacobs, no matter how it happened, is tragic. Okay? Even if the man is guilty of something, it's tragic. Okay? From the very beginning, I had said, and other people have said, you know, it's probable, it's possible, we're speculating, wearing a tinfoil hat. I've said it all. And I said the tinfoil hat thing for the people who are unable to think outside of what CNN tells them to think or outside of what Fox News tells them to think, okay? I don't really wear a tinfoil hat. That there was a probability that maybe the feds felt that they needed to take him because he was being threatened by John Paul Miller. Once again, not a conspiracy theory. This came from his own family and friends. Why would an innocent man, John Paul Miller, need to threaten another innocent man, Johnny Jacobs, for months? What's the threat? Why do you need to threaten him? What were you threatening him for? And now all of a sudden he's found gone. Oh no, there's nothing suspicious about that at all. And the car that hits him was totaled a few years back in an accident, hit an animal, and it was completely totaled. But now it's on the road and kills Johnny Jacobs. The guy who finds Mica Miller's belongings. The guy who John Paul Miller felt the need to threaten for months. Oh no, no suspicion there at all. You got it. That's okay. I'll be a lemming too, and I'll just say, it was simply an accident. No, it wasn't. Okay, there's more to this no matter how you want to look at it. It really doesn't matter. It is a significant thing to happen to the Mica Miller case for Johnny Jacobs to be gone. No matter how you look at it. So, before you dismiss people by saying they're conspiracy theorists, by slinging around that term, I suggest you do your homework. Look into the actual expression you're using. And then think about what people are saying and who they're saying it about. John Paul Miller has been accused by his own neighbors for trafficking. And if you listen to that 911 call from Andy, the neighbor, he insinuates that he has called Horry County Sheriff's Department multiple times about this subject, not once. And by the way, it's not only Andy who's reporting it. It was the mail lady and other neighbors. Shall we dismiss them too and call them conspiracy theorists? I mean, when does it end with that kind of an explanation of dismissal? When? When do we stop making it easy for the criminal? I'm just wondering. So there's my rant on don't use that term unless you can absolutely prove that your view and your way and your speculation of things is the absolute truth. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you, everybody, for joining me this morning. Again, this is not towards one particular person, although it may seem that way, because I happen to agree with some of the things that that person had said regarding content creators need to learn how to share, or excuse me, not even share. Sharing is good, but to give credit where credit is due. And that came from Agatha May. If you're going to use someone's work where they took out the time or the money or both to research, investigate, pay for, look into, find some kind of clue or evidence in regards to a case that everyone is looking into, it is the ethical thing to do is to give that person credit. The end. And if you are unable to do that, put down your microphone and go find another job. Because we need less of you. We need less people doing that. If that offends you, then that means you're the problem. There you go. Because that means you do that. I don't do that. Agatha doesn't do that. CJ doesn't do that. You know, so there's a lot of people that don't. Steph doesn't do that. So there's a lot of people out there they don't do that. They give credit to the people who deserve it. But taking it and making it your own and acting like you're the only one who's investigated this case is getting on a lot of people's nerves, I got to tell you. And I am so tired of having to talk about that. Really, it's getting old and tired. So there you go. But the conspiracy theory thing, oh my God, that's all I've been hearing for the past 2 weeks or week and a half since Johnny passed away. And I got to tell you something, and I'm going to finish it off with this. If in fact what we've speculated, again, speculation, if we've speculated that it wasn't an accident, let's just say, and it was done on purpose for whatever reason, you're not doing a service by his family by dismissing it before it's even been looked into. Why don't you allow the authorities to rule that out? Because if it were my loved one, I don't want the public to make a decision on whether it's true or not. I want the authorities, the experts, to be able to rule it out. And so that's what I hope for Johnny. That, and I mean not corrupt experts, I mean real ones. That they look into this and go, this is exactly what happened and why it happened. And if they come back with it was simply an accident, then still it's tragic, but at least we can leave it alone. But just to dismiss it this early on, you're not doing a service to those people or Johnny. You are helping are the people who found him a threat. So I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining in. I should be back again because God only knows what will bring me back. And please, everyone, if you haven't had a chance to please go on our Rumble and look at the new documentaries if you haven't already. They're very good, very informative, and help you to think outside the box. It's real truth, absolute truth, not what they want you to think is truth. They being the talking heads. And I'm not talking about the group, the music group. They were pretty good. Now I'm talking about the Mockingbirds. We say the same thing over and over and over again. They repeat each other. And they repeat, all they talk is propaganda, what they want you to believe, not the absolute truth. If you want to be lied to and you like having smoke blown up your rear end, then by all means, go listen to them. But if you are somebody who wants to be considered one who can think for themselves, if you want to be relevant in an argument or debate, if you want to be relevant in talking about anything that's going on in our world, you need to be prepared with the truth. And when we're handing it to you for free and still you don't go and look into it, then basically you're making the decision to stay ignorant. And that's your decision. That's your free will. But then stay in your corner. Don't come out and want to be part of the conversation when you don't even have enough information or the correct information to be part of the conversation. Okay? I hope that made sense. There's a lot of long words there. Anyway, until I see you again, please stay safe and God bless.